You're in Braves country.
Welcome to Braves Country Radio. We are excited to bring you a brand new season.
All right, welcome in. And that little video that just popped up there, that was sent to us by PETA. Good job, PETA. We're working on some stuff for the season. Thought she did a pretty good job for that. I know the volume was a little loud. There was I couldn't edit it in time to get the volume down, but y'all get the gist. We're going to be sending those out to different stations and whatnot, and probably adding stuff to it, et cetera, et cetera. You know how the creative world works, but I thought she did a nice job. Let's get into it. We're going to dive into the world of the Atlanta Braves, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about, a little time to do it. I'm going to try to squeeze this in fairly quickly as I'm late getting to this. And I know the big thing that everybody wants to talk about is Jurickson Profar and the suspension that came about. And with that, you know, where do we go from here is the biggest question. Where do we go from here? We got several questions. I'm going to combine some of them, but those on the YouTube channel, I'll hit them individually. And we'll start off with Uncle Charlie. He was the first one to chime in on our Q&A. If you're not paying attention, we've got a Q&A that pops up in the posts on the YouTube channel, and we're also putting one on the Facebook channel. We usually get a lot more traffic as far as reactions and whatnot on YouTube, so we always go to that one first. Plus, that's really where we want everybody to catch the game at. We do put it on quite a bit on our Facebook page, but it's more ideal for us to be doing it on YouTube. There's just a lot of reasonings for it. So anyways, let's go ahead and go to Uncle Charlie's first question. He said, with Jurickson Profar away again, and this time, obviously, he's out for the season, can we totally flush him down the drain? What kind of potential player, position, or pitcher is available? And I think this is a pretty common question. We saw this on a few of the posts, and essentially, the answer is we're going to be off the hook this year for Jurickson Profar's money. And that's fine. We're going to save the money. The problem is, really wish he would have gotten popped a little earlier to give us the idea to be able to go look for somebody, even if it wasn't someone who was going to blow you away. It's just somebody that was going to give you an idea, give you a chance to compete. Well, right now there's nothing out there, but we will go over the options. And then also we'll be looking at when guys get released, because teams are going down. So the Braves just went down to 59 players. They'll be cutting the rest this week. You still have 3 weeks until opening day. But even with that, and James asked us a couple of days ago, it's already been null and void. He was asking about McCutchen, and that's one of the guys I had circled, but the Braves didn't get to the punch quick enough, and Andrew McCutchen is a Texas Ranger. So unfortunately, that's no longer an option. It was when James put the question in, but it's no longer now. And if you follow us on X, as soon as I saw it, I quote tweeted and said, "Great job, Braves." I mean, Andrew McCutchen is not the end all, the beats all, but he would have been extremely cheap. You could have brought him in, and he could have done essentially what we needed him to do, which is hit the ball, get on base. He's not who he used to be, but he would have been a decent option while we're waiting for Sean Murphy and Hassan Kim to come back. So remember, when they come back, we had a pretty loaded roster to begin with. So this hurt us a little worse last year because last year you did not have Kim, you did not have Yastrzemski, and also remember he got popped. It was, 7 days into the season? It may not have even been that early in the season. I'm thinking it was, someone had mentioned Game 7, but I'm thinking back to the memory of it. I thought it was right before we started the Dodger series. So I think it was right after the San Diego series, which means 4 games. So anyways, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We got popped with the news, and the season already began, and it really hit you like a ton of bricks, and we went 0-7. So everything that could go wrong went wrong last year. Now this year we're dealing with some similar type of juju where you're like, good Lord, who put the curse on us, and can we get it lifted? Because not only do you have Profar going out for the season, we don't know when we're going to, or if we're going to get Schwellenbach, or if we're going to get Hurston Waldrop, and a number of other guys that are out there on the ice that we have no idea will they ever thaw, or are they going to stay on the ice all season long? Because you always get cryptic answers when these guys who cover the team ask the questions. They never hit them with the hard questions, so it's always kind of a softball type of layups, and they never try to get a real answer from the front office when they actually have a chance to talk to them. So you never get a real answer. We just have to kind of read the tea leaves and hope we know what the hell is going on. But regardless, the question about the contract, so if you remember when he signed last year, it was $12 million in 2025. We got about half of that back. It is $15 million for 2026. We'll get all of that back. Actually, we'll never spend it. It's funny. I saw some people going at it back and forth on X, and they were giving each other just all kinds of grief because one didn't understand. For people who don't understand, the players, when they sign their contracts, they don't get their money all in one lump sum at the beginning of the season. It's not how it works. They get paid just like the average Joe on their paydays, so that money never left Atlanta, right? And you get paid for your regular season. So the $15 million across the board is saved, and it's $18 million total because we were going to be charged $3 million for being over the salary tax. Now, right now, it's being estimated. It's real goofy how Major League Baseball does this. I hope they clean this up in the CBA. Can we get a hard number? Because you get several different calculations, but the short of it is most people are coming up with the number of about $10.7 million. That's about where we are under the cap, right? And I do think the Braves are willing to go back and spend that money once again. And you're going to get all the naysayers and the Debbie Downers, and we get them in the chat during the ball games. Not a lot of them check in on the shows because most of them don't know what the hell they're talking about. But you get those Debbie Downers that come in, and they're, well, they're not going to spend any money. The problem is there's no money to be spent out there, because I'm going to give you the list, and you're going to understand why. You're not going to go run to the bank, because you're not just going to spend money just throw up against the wall. Because someone may become available later in the season via trade or even get released, and you want to spend wisely. You don't want to just go boo bats and start throwing things at the wall. So we're going to go over the hitters first, and then I'm going to go over the pitchers that are available out there. The Braves, you could get a mix and match. You could get them to add an arm and still add a bat, because we're at that spot at the free agents where we are no longer got the big money guy, the big ticket guy, and what we're trying to look for at this point is guys that will fit for a couple of months, maybe more, because you can't guarantee the rest of the roster is going to go healthy. So you'd like to get someone, whoever you sign, that has a little flexibility to be put in on the defensive side of the ball. So let's go over them. Guys that are free agents, and I'm going off of Spot Track, and the only problem I have with this is I already seen one name that's on this thing that I know to be a lie. They still have Andrew McCutchen. So if I mention anybody that has recently gotten signed in the last 24 hours and I didn't happen to see him, fair enough. But I'm telling you what's out there. I'm going to tell you who's out there that the Braves might be kicking the tires on. We're not going to go on every single guy. So number one, I'm going to go with looking at the AAV, market value AAV, and this is what they're projecting what each player may bring home. And then you also have in here as far as the market value of what they were last year. So you do have guys like Max Kepler out there, but he didn't really light anybody on fire. Max Kepler played with the Phillies last year. Last year his AAV was $10 million. They're projecting now about 7.5. There's Tommy Pham out there. I don't know why he's being projected at 6.7. He got 4 last year, and his skills have deteriorated. An honest engine, I will not be excited if Tommy Pham comes to the Braves, because even though he's been a decent hitter, it is infamous that he is a clubhouse cancer. And I think you got a good group of guys in there that are getting along, and you got Walt Weiss taking over in year one. You don't need some nonsense coming in there trying to rock the apple cart. So I'd rather have a guy who's in there focusing on winning and not focusing on himself, and that's what you've always gotten from Tommy Pham. He's gotten into it with ex-teammates. He's gotten into it with current teammates. So people that start telling you about Tommy Pham, I just don't want to hear it. I'm not saying it's impossible, but God dog it, I hope we don't end up with that. Jesse Winker, he's an interesting name out there, 32 years old, but the problem is he does terribly from the left-hand side of the plate. You really, if you're going to go out and sign if you're going to go out and sign an outfielder, you really need to get a right-handed bat. And if you're going to sign someone who's not a right fielder, we'll say someone who can play in another position, but they're going to use in the DH, I still think you're kind of looking for a right-handed bat. So Winker, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but it's highly doubtful. Luis Urias, he's an infielder, doesn't give you a lot of pop. And now we're really starting to get to the bottom of the barrel. Jose Iglesias had a couple of years ago, had a pretty good season with the Mets, not so much last year. And then really what's left, I mean, we've kicked these rocks before. And I interest you in Alex Verdugo or Kevin Pillar. We all know that they're cooked, right? Nothing against them personally as people, but we don't need that to be added to the team. So what I really think the Braves are going to try to do, if it's possible, they're going to try to pull this off. I'm not going to say they're going to, but they're going to try to pull this off. They are going to try to either make a trade, which is going to be really tough because most teams don't want to give the idea that the season is over before it began, right? And we all know the Braves don't give up a ton. So if they don't give up a ton, why in the world would someone make a trade right now of anybody worth value? It's more likely that the Braves are going to be looking for that bat at the trade deadline, and they're just trying to figure out a way to get there now. So what I think is more likely it's going to happen is if they can't pull off a trade, even a minor trade, I could see them going out and getting an outfielder that can help them, or even a utility guy that can help them for a short stretch. But what I'm really expecting is they're going to wait until the cuts are made in a couple of weeks. And there might be guys cut before that, but typically the final cuts are made leading into. So you've got the World Baseball Classic going on. So the cut date is actually a little later this year. But just look at it going into that final weekend. You're going to start hearing rumblings. You're going to start seeing guys get cut. And that's where the Braves are going to start trying to pounce. And they're going to be looking for someone who wants to prove that they can still play. And they're going to get ample opportunity, especially against left-handed pitching. And if it's an outfielder, they're going to get a chance to play defense because you'd be able to put the Yaz on the bench versus Southpaws because his career numbers are awful. And you're going to be able to put this person in the outfield. Now, right now, if the season starts right now, you kind of have the answer. You've got Eli White playing left field versus lefties, and the Yaz getting the majority of the at-bats versus righties, because as we all know, most starters are right-handed. Okay, I don't hate that. But you're still looking at who gets that final spot because those four guys were already in stone going to make the team. So, with that being said, let's say we don't add a batter in the near future. Everybody is still kind of forgotten about the fact we need a starter. And they hadn't gotten a starter. Were we not told way back in December on a radio interview that we played right here on the show by Anthopoulos himself that the number one goal was to get a starting pitcher? And he didn't even know that he was going to be losing Waldrop and Schwellenbach for this long of a period of time. Nothing of real. I mean, yeah, we got Martin Perez. We got a couple other guys that aren't likely to make the team. But I'm talking about a real difference maker. You still have Lucas Giolito out there. I just don't think it's likely. Lucas Giolito, he's being projected at a market value AAV right now of $20 million. You might be able to get him somewhere between 12 to 15 with a direct opt-out, but you have to give him a 3-year deal. So let's say it's a 3-year deal worth $50 million, but he gets an opt-out after 1 year. That's probably what he's looking at this point because he painted himself in a corner because he and his agent overvalued him, and then the music stopped and the chairs were full, and he's hoping somebody is going to get injured, kind of like what's going on in Atlanta. But if he gets multiple teams with that situation, we still have 3 weeks before opening day, then we're talking turkey. Here's my issue with the whole thing. If they don't get said pitcher in, they don't get him signed by the end of this weekend, to hell with it. See what you can get on the scrap heap. Because we saw this a couple of years ago when Jordan Montgomery, who just came off a World Series, and Blake Snell, who was phenomenal in his own right, and they played the long game, and they didn't sign till March. Snell was never himself. He pitched okay in the middle of the season, much better towards the end, but he was terrible at the beginning. This is when he was in San Francisco. And he had an opt-out because he knew he would get a better worth if he hit the opt-out, and that's when he signed with the Dodgers, et cetera, et cetera. But Jordan Montgomery never was right. Then he got hurt. Rangers were on the hook, and they had to pay him for last year, where he finally came back into the bullpen, and he was getting – I mean, he was a batting practice bullpen guy. He came in, and the balls just get swatted all over the damn place. Now, I don't want anything to do with those guys. And Frankie Montas does not set my hair on fire. Don't care anything about him. Alex Cobb's 38 years old. Okay, he's decent. Or was decent last year. But his expected value is such a question mark, I don't think we want to take a chance on him. And is he going to be okay with basically a bottom of the barrel type salary, try to prove it. I don't think he will. Then you got John Gray, who at one point was a really big prospect, played at I believe it was Oklahoma in college, and he went to the Rockies. He's never had the career we thought he had, but he's had some good stuff, and he's had some decent seasons, but he's 34 years old. Patrick Corbin is the one that intrigues me the most. He's a left-hander. He was with Texas. Before that, we knew him from Washington. I used to talk about it all the time when he was with Washington. It was one of the worst contracts in the history of baseball. But that's back when he signed a 5-year, $140 million deal and wasn't delivering. Last year, he actually pitched pretty well. And he would be a perfect fit to come in and fill the rotation for half the year. And if we do DFA him when a Schwellenbach and a Waldrop come back, or some of our younger guys develop, he would have an opportunity to put enough of a resume together to be able to go out on the market, either get traded or someone would pick him up. And I thought Patrick Corbin was pretty good. He's going to be 37 later this year, but I thought he still had pretty good stuff. For someone who plays a lot of fantasy football and pays attention to the daily lines and all that kind of stuff, he wasn't a bad bet last year. Wade Miley, he's way past his prime, 39 years old. He's still out there. Zach Littell's interesting, but he's in that same boat as Lucas Giolito, and I would have loved to have signed Zach Littell a month ago and got him into camp and let him get ready to roll because he was a solid starter for Tampa. Then he went to Cincinnati, but all in all, what you got out of Zach Littell on a daily basis was a guy that usually kept the score down, usually went 5 innings, sometimes 6, and kept runs off the board, and you can't ask for anything more. His expected AAV was 12.8 to start the year. You can probably knock a few off of that at this point if you signed him. You could probably get him down around 8, maybe have to pay him 10, but I think you could get him for 8, maybe a touch less. I wouldn't hate that, but let me get the news Friday. Let me get the news Saturday. Let me get the news Sunday. Don't give me this news 2 weeks from now because he's not going to be stretched out. No matter what these jackasses say, they're never stretched out. They come to spring, they go, I have to go to extended spring training, and we all know how the Braves do. Hell, they haven't been very good about getting guys ready and rolling anyways, and, we'll sign you, and we'll see you in June. Well, hell, that's when some of these guys are supposed to be ready to come up, either some of our prospects or possibly even the injured guys. So if they don't get them soon, I don't care about them. Michael Keppick, nothing there for me. I don't know. Marcus Stroman, we good. Nothing. I think his career's done. He's the pitching version of Tommy Pham. You could see some talent in him, but nobody liked him. And you have a cancer in the locker room, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're eventually going to wear out your welcome. And you better be Barry Bonds roided up good, because if not, they're going to find a way to get rid of you. Nobody likes to go to the ballpark and it's a hard enough job as it is trying to hit a ball, trying to get a guy out without dealing with some jackass. So that's what you got there. The other option that I was thinking about, and this is, take this with a grain of salt. But if you don't get one of these proven starters, there are some guys out there on the relief market that have not been paid, that have not been signed. And depending on where they're at, I know some of them have had some injury issues. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I'm just going to give you the names that are out there, the possibilities, and we can look into their injuries down the road. And if someone already knows it, off the top of their head, I'm familiar with a lot of them, but I don't have the numbers in front of me on whether or not it's likely to to be a fit or not. But here's some interesting names. First of all, first one jumped off the screen at me. Luke Jackson. Can I get some Luke Jackson in your life? Oof. He was serving up batting practice out there in Seattle the last time I saw him last year. And you believe he's going to be 35 years old? Seems like it was yesterday he broke in for the Braves. Jose Leclerc. Tommy Conley. Other names of interest out there, and there's not a ton, but I'm talking about you could go and get some guys. You know, you can go and get a disco stick, Anthony Desclafini. You could go out and sign a guy that could go out and be a part of a bullpen game with the Joey Wentz every week. And I don't hate that idea. I don't hate the idea of going to a 6-man rotation knowing that it's going to be, so I'll give you an example. Let's say that all these people are healthy, et cetera, and you're going to go out there, the 6-man rotation of Sale, Strider, Raylo, Grant Holmes. The number 5 guy obviously would be Elder, and then you put Joey Wentz at number 6. And then as opposed to a deep 8-man bullpen, you use a 7-man bullpen, but one of those guys is a swing man as well. So if Wentz goes 5 or 6 innings, you don't use him that day. You might use him on the day that Bryce Elder pitches. Let's say Elder is struggling to get through 4 or 5. Or let's say Grant Holmes is. You know, so I don't hate that idea, but I would be looking for a guy that could go out there and get you some long innings, and then maybe someone that they want to pull from the pen. But I don't hate the idea of doing it that way, saving the money, because we all know what always happens to the damn Braves every single trading deadline. You hear all these rumors and nothing happens. And why does nothing happen? Because they don't have the money, because they spent it in the spring, and every one of the jacklegs either got suspended or got injured or what have you. This could be the first year. We talked about this last year. We talked about this the year before, about the idea of maybe hold some cards. If you ever played poker, right? Maybe you don't push your chips all in on the first hand. Maybe you hold on a little bit and wait to see what cards you're holding in July and go from there. But I do think when it's all said and done, most of the folks are going to be looking at building this team not with a free agent, but with someone that they can either get up off the trash heap on the cuts that are coming, or maybe they can swing a deal. And the Braves do have a deep pitching in their farm system. Maybe they can find a way to bring some guys in. So I do want to make sure I hit John. He said with $18 million freed up, how should AA deploy it? Yeah, that's essentially what I just went over. And iron lung, put it in a paper bag and chuck it over a cliff. But what was it here? Let me get over here. There was a question from Kelly, and she wanted to know. So what is she? Okay, so she wanted to know, as far as on the Braves roster right now, who are we looking at as far as what does it look like? Okay, I see what she's trying to say. She's wanting to know. So I kind of just went over the starting rotation. She wants to know what the bullpen most likely will look like. So let's say we go 7, and we're going to keep a guy. It could be a Dylan Dodd that's your swing man, right? He's been very good, but we'll just leave that as a possibility. But let's pick 8 guys in the bullpen, and we're going to include Joey Wentz in this, right? So let's say it's Joey Wentz, though he may get starts. Iglesias and Suarez, Tyler Kinley, Dylan Lee, Aaron Bummer, I know there's a groan throughout Braves country, but he really has been. He's been better than what people realize. I always felt like he was deployed at the wrong times in the game. He's not the guy you put in the high leverage situation. He's a guy you bring in the middle innings. That's just my opinion on him. Hell, maybe I'm off, but that's when he shined. Okay, so that's 6. I think I already mentioned Dodd. So Wentz, Iglesias, Suarez, Kenley, Lee, Bummer, Dodd is 7. And so number 8, we haven't seen a ton of them, but I was really hoping Joel Pyomps would be the guy. And I still think that's probably who ends up getting a shot, but I'd just like to see him more often. You know, we've been calling a lot of these games, and I have not seen him much. So there is that outside chance. So let's say for some reason I'm wrong with one of those guys, but we do go with Wentz, but he's in the rotation, and you're looking for like basically a guy who's just going to sit at the front of the bullpen. He's going to maybe open, but he's not a true starter, but he's most likely going to be a guy that you bring in the middle innings. Don't necessarily forget about Martin Perez. He hasn't been super impressive, but let me tell you something about Martin Perez. He is 34 years old. He's a southpaw. He's a guy that induces ground balls. And all in all, over the years, he's been pretty good. Now, last year, coming off of injury, he threw only 16 pitches, but he had a 2.25 ERA. In 2024, with Pittsburgh, before injury, he threw 15 pitches at a .6 ERA. Looking at some of these things that go on day in and day out with him, and he's a guy that honestly, if I'm looking at Martin Perez, what you're really looking at here, and I was just referring to the spring numbers, so let's get to the full regular season. Last year, with 2 teams, he had an ERA just over 3 with the White Sox. The year before, I just misspoke. The year before with 2 teams, Pittsburgh and San Diego, his ERA was right there, about 3.5. He's typically a guy that gives you around a 4 ERA, but coming out of the pen, he gives you a much lower ERA. And so the pen numbers is what I was referring to a second ago. I think I said spring, but I meant pen numbers. The reason being, if you ever watch this guy pitch, he's kind of a crafty left-hander. Think of Quintana. He reminds me a lot of Quintana with his delivery and whatnot. But he induces ground balls. He is able to go through a lineup once, maybe even twice, pretty well. It's that third time through the lineup where he just gets annihilated because he doesn't have the velocity, especially doesn't have it anymore. His best years as a starter in Major League Baseball was with Texas, especially in 2022, where he threw 196 innings at a 2.89 ERA. But everybody always felt like that was fool's gold. And the next year, he was over 4. And then, like I said, in 2024, he didn't have a great year. Was just under 4. And then last year, 2025, 354, 56 total innings. See how many games he started, 11. I mean, I would take that as a guy as a stopgap, but he's not something that's going to write home. But I'm just putting it out there. If you see him make the team, just don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. He's 34 years old. He's a guy who's just looking to try to extend his career just a little longer. Because remember, the longer you're in the show, the bigger your pension is. And you can pretty much say that about any profession. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. I want to keep this fairly short. And we will see you tonight. Remember, it's 6 p.m. Braves, Minnesota. We'll come on the air at 5:45. And so we're going to do about the first 3 or 4 innings. Got to cut it off at around 7:30. We're going to keep the feed up because the USA and WBC taking on the world. And we start off with Brazil, and that begins Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, here on Braves Country Radio. Friday night, Saturday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. It's go time. And a ton of other games. We're doing the doubleheader tomorrow, or I'm recording this late on Thursday night, so it's technically today. We're doing the doubleheader on Friday. We're doing the single game on Saturday. We're doing a doubleheader of Braves and Twins day-night split with the Braves and the USA baseball on Monday. Tuesday after work during the day, but I'll be back in time for Tuesday night baseball. And then Wednesday we're doing a doubleheader. USA is off. Whether they win, lose, or draw, they're scheduled to be off Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to bring you a couple of games, and I'll tell you what, that Venezuela-Dominican Republic game ought to be fun on Wednesday night. Wednesday day, I think it's Canada and Cuba. And then Thursday night, Braves and Pirates. Friday night, back to the WBC, where the semifinals are on Friday night next week, and then they have a doubleheader Saturday. It's a matinee evening split, and we're going to do those. So hopefully my voice holds up. Y'all have a great one. I don't know if we're going to do a Braves Country today next week, but if we don't, we're definitely going to get one done shortly after the WBC, because this whirlwind's about to start for me, and I'm going to try to squeeze one in. I just don't know when the hell I'm going to do it. Y'all have a great one. We're going to play that clip that PETA made, and thanks again, PETA. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to Braves Country Radio. We are excited to bring you a brand new season.
You're in Braves Country.